And we're ready.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. We can rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Can we get a roll call?
Sure. Mrs. Albright. I'm sorry.
Here.
Thank you. Mrs. Bell.
Here.
Mrs. Jerk.
Here,
Mrs. Leone.
Here.
Mrs. Olson.
Here.
Mr. Rittenhouse. Here. Mr. Scott here. Mr. Strobel.
Here.
And Mrs. Thompson.
Here.
All present.
Okay. So, just let everybody know this is the special voting meeting. There are 3 items on the agenda for the special voting meeting. So, I'm about to read the procedures for public participation. Prepared statements that are to be read to the board should have a copy presented to the board president prior to their being addressed. Comments on agenda items will be made by rising and approaching the microphone, stating your name and address, and signing in on the sheet provided. You'll be granted up to 3 minutes to address the board. Your 3-minute time limit will start when you begin to speak. When 3 minutes are over, you will be asked to be seated. Any item that is not on the agenda, as well as agenda items acted upon, comments will be made at the designated section at the end of the agenda. Okay, so there are 3 items on the agenda, all under personnel. If you have comments about the stuff that's on the committee of the whole, I ask you to hold them until we start the committee of the whole meeting. So for these 3 personnel items, does anybody have any public comment? Okay, seeing none? None, right? Okay. So under personnel consent items, 2A1 for resignation. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make it.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Comments, questions, concerns? Can we get a vote?
Sure. Mrs. Albright.
Yes.
Mrs. Bell.
Yes.
Mr. Jerk.
yes,
Mrs. Leone.
Yes.
Mrs. Olson.
Yes.
Mr. Rittenhouse.
Yes.
Mr. Scott. Yes. Mr. Strobel.
Yes.
And Mrs. Thompson.
Yes.
9 yeses.
Okay. So moving on to 2A2. Motion to elect a district superintendent of schools in accordance with some laws and to enter into contract compensation, benefits, and other terms and conditions for the district of superintendent of schools as attached. Do I get a motion for that?
I'll make it.
Can I have a second?
I'll make it.
And we have to do this before we can vote on the candidates. So, can we get a roll?
Yep. Mrs. Albright.
Yes.
Mrs. Bell.
Yes.
Mr. Jerk.
yes,
Mrs. Leone.
Yes.
Mrs. Olson.
Yes.
Mr. Rittenhouse.
Yes.
Mr. Scott, yes. Mr. Strobel.
Yes.
And Mrs. Thompson.
Yes.
9
And
yeses.
can I get a motion for 2A3?
I'll make it.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
And before we vote, I would like to say, I want to thank the members of the staff and the administration and the board and the BCIU who helped us with our superintendent search. We had a lot of qualified applicants. I think it was 19. And we narrowed it down to 1, and we do think he's the best candidate that we saw. His name is Thomas Volker. He is here tonight. Hi. So we are voting on a 5-year contract for him to start after Dr. Cooper retires on June 30th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody want to say something before we vote? No? Okay, can I vote?
Sure. Mrs. Albright?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Jerk?
Yes.
Mrs. Leone?
Yes.
Mrs. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Rittenhouse?
Yes.
Mr. Scott, yes. Mr. Strobel?
Yes.
And Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
9 yeses.
Mr. Voker, I'd like to invite you to come up to the mic if you'd like to say something real quick.
No pressure.
No
Yeah,
pressure.
so I did not prepare anything, but I do just want to address everybody in this room and just express my sincere gratitude. It's an opportunity for me to come back to Daniel Boone, to return home to a place where I fell in love with education, and I'm so sincerely appreciative of this opportunity. I can't wait to take the work that's been occurring and continue to drive the district forward. So thank you for your belief in me, and I look forward to earning that 9-0 vote. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that being said, do I have a motion to adjourn the voting meeting?
Make it.
And a second from Mr. Scott, I believe?
Who was the first?
Ms. Albright. Ms. Albright.
Mrs. Albright. You're here.
And we're adjourned.